All right, guys. So, did you want to do one more story? Did you want to do the Bari Weiss thing?
I guess so. I think it's been covered really well out in the media. That was
Okay.
something that everyone had a lot of interesting things to say. I definitely want to hear you guys' opinion, though, if you want to give a
Somebody I'm a
what's a big
Facebook friend. Somebody I'm a
yeah.
Facebook friend with that I should, I'm tempted to block, but I keep getting their stuff. And they posted this thing that, Franklin Graham came out with a tweet saying that Bari Weiss's letter of resignation from the Times proves that the New York Times is an oppressive, against freedom of speech and thought or whatever. I mean, I think Bari Weiss is kind of a despicable. I mean, at least her opinions. I just don't. I don't regard her too highly, but I just thought it was interesting that Franklin Graham is defending Bari Weiss now. So.
Anyway. And obviously, I mean, as Tulsi people, the biggest thing was when she made that comment
about the toady.
Joe Rogan that isn't she a toady for Assad? I think I've got that right. Toady, what? And she didn't even know what the word meant that she was labeling Tulsi with. And I just always comment, well, it must say that on the New York Times wall. Tulsi Gabbard is a toady of Assad, and so she repeats it without even needing to know what it means, because that's what I think of.
I just think it's much ado about nothing, because the New York Times, I don't read the New York Times. I refuse to pay for a subscription. So I just read the free articles I get on COVID-19. I think those are free now or something. But, and then she kind of canceled herself by writing this letter saying that, they didn't get rid of her. She resigned, right?
And the points she raised in there about cancel culture kind of stuff is I think it's valid, but the thing is she was a major participant in it, so it's very strange. I don't know.
Right, exactly. That was the weird part.
It's like you're crying too much about this here, given who you are.
Like she's not engaging. She's canceling herself instead of engaging. With whatever, for what it's worth, with the New York Times. I mean, she said, "I'm out of here."
Who knows? It might end up being a good thing. She's going to, probably end up landing somewhere else safely, and who knows? Maybe she'll actually out of that environment. Maybe she'll have something to say. Who knows? Yeah.
Maybe.
What do you think, Daisy?
So for me, I honestly couldn't care less about her. Yeah. I haven't watched any of this stuff that has to do with her, because to me, it's I don't even think that she deserves the attention nor any sort of, you know what I'm saying? She doesn't even deserve the time. Yeah. But I think the bigger, what I really took out of it was the bigger picture thing that I think it's really interesting how she is representative of this class of people, right? This, what is considered this elitist class, right? Where they're so out of touch with reality, with what's really going on, with with the struggles that people are actually going through. And the fact that so many people were excited, they were salivating over this story. It goes to show you how much vitriol people have towards that class of people that she is representing.
Well, I thought you were going to have some vitriol, because wasn't she a big Israeli supporter against Palestine?
I mean, it's first of all, everybody has their own opinion, right? And they have their own stance. She looks at anybody who is for Palestine or pro-Palestine, or if you are anti-Israel, or just if you have any sort of not pro-Israel look, right, then you are just a toady.
Well, that's what I was going to say. She's an Israel apologist, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, but again, she is part of that class. It's just like how our Congress people think that it is normal to be so blindly pro-Israel,
right.
and any sort of talk against what is going on, against the occupation, it is seen as either, if you are Jewish, you're a self-hating Jew. Every single Jewish person who is fighting against this occupation is considered It's
Yeah.
anti-Semitic, and they're self-hating Jews.
Yeah, and it's crazy, of course, because I love our country, but our country could be a hell of a lot better in 1,000 different ways, and I think it's correct to work towards that, right?
To me, it's the most patriotic thing
Yeah.
is to question your country, because and not to just blindly follow whatever it is, whatever narrative it is that is being spun. I think that it's very dangerous, because especially when you have people in Congress and even our veterans, when they swear the oath is to the Constitution. It's not to the president. It's not even to the country. It is to the Constitution.
Yeah, good point.
And the Constitution talks about we the people. It doesn't say we the country, or me the president, or we the Congress, or or we Israel, another country, like that. That's always, I think, what really just drives me nuts about this whole narrative of when anybody says that why isn't it okay for Israel to to have lobbyists and all this kind of stuff in Washington D.C. I just don't think that any foreign country, should have any sort of influence, and especially so much influence the way that Israel does. That's my only issue.
Or lobbying.
Any country. It could be Russia. It could be China. It could be
or corporate interests. I mean, they shouldn't be taking their time and attention away from doing the people's business.
Now, how many corporate lobbyists do we have in the Duma in Russia? I'm just wondering, do we have?
Yeah, maybe I can count them on one hand.
Yeah, and they're probably in prison. So, anyways.
Yeah. So again, like for Bari Weiss, she's representative of this class of people that, again, they're just so out of touch, and so many people are just so happy that she is not, like, they think of her as such a joke, and it obviously it stemmed off of the interview on Joe Rogan, that I think really set it off, because I think it just really highlighted the fact that people that are in that little sphere, that circle, they are just given this information, and it's not internalized. It's not their actual opinion. That's what that showed, was that it wasn't her opinion. It was a given opinion.
That's what I said. It's on the wall of the New York Times, where they're sitting there working, and that's just like, that's what you got to say. That's definitely my feeling too.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And that's not what the media is supposed to be about. They're supposed to be, there to hold the people in power to account. That.
Right.
Well, the New York Times. I used to religiously read the New York Times every day when I lived in New York in the subway to and from work. I'd read it cover to cover. But then after the Iraq War with the Judith Miller thing, it totally lost credibility for me, because they just basically verbatim, were stenographers rather than journalists, just repeating what was given to them at these press conferences that was blatantly, proven to be false information, and didn't do any legwork to actually verify these assertions, and as a result, I mean, it contributed to getting us into the Iraq war, which maybe wouldn't have happened if there had been more popular opposition to it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened just recently. It was nice of them to so blatantly show us that they're still taking money from the CIA or whatever, to just parrot their message of, Afghanistan are taking Russian money.
Are they admitting to taking money from the CIA? I think some of their writers are
indirectly. I mean, basically, they're part of that. Somehow they benefit from
Project
Washington Post.
Yeah,
Jeff Bezos.
That's true. Absolutely.
Board of the CIA.
Right.
Sits on the Pentagon.
Yeah. So there's a more direct pipeline from CIA to Washington Post journalists, but New York Times, it's a little more indirect, and it's more.
But they all circulate the same stories. If you look at a lot of their stuff, it's like the same. It's like how how they came out with that press junket where they showed that it was the same thing being said all across the country.
Right.
It's exactly like that, but in print media. That's it.
Yeah. Right. Well, and they suppress the same stories as well. So they don't always put out the same stories, but certain stories don't get covered, like Centerville, Illinois, that type of thing.
Yes.
You know, a lot of things they won't cover, and the alternative media sometimes will eventually, like the whole thing, Tara Reid, for instance, that didn't get covered until finally they were embarrassed into having to cover it to some
Yes.
extent because of the alternative media. But now, of course, it's
Well, I was going to say we are so lucky this in this point in time as compared to 2016 and before, where we have this really excellent alternative media that
Yeah.
are capable of shaming the New York Times, Washington Post into having to cover some of these things a little bit.
Right.
And it's fantastic. And you know how that probably works is basically it's wonderful. You have this situation where Jimmy Dore pushes or somebody pushes Tara Reid. Eventually, they're shamed into covering it on MSNBC and CNN, and then those people watching that go, Tara Reid, what is this all about? And they might Google, and they might find Jimmy Dore, and they might find Kim Iverson, Convo Couch, and Nico House, and that's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well,
Right.
I'm waiting for them to go after the alternative media. When is that going to happen?
Oh, it's coming.
Well, a lot of them are already moving to
Alternative platforms,
Rofkin and so forth,
Rockfin,
because so like, and I also would encourage people to get on Parler from Twitter. For right now, be on both platforms. I'm trying to pull more Tulsi people and progressives and anti-war people over to Parler, because basically as of right now, I don't see evidence of them suppressing speech.
Because if you lose the ability to
banning.
protest in the streets, and you lose the alternative media, what do you have left?
Right. Yeah. So
Well,
it's great.
and I think it also helps with competition, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the biggest
Yes.
reason why places like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, they do the things that they do because there is no other comparative platform, right? So they have a monopoly on these sort of platforms. But obviously, if you have more options that, as they grow in popularity, then these other companies are going to be forced to change and be more consumer friendly.
Right. It's just the fact that
perfect point. Yeah.
But the fact that Facebook has monopoly on it, basically. I mean, they already have. It's hard to butt into that. So you can have like whatever the alternative platform is, like Parler or something like that. But they have to get a big share of the market before it really becomes a player. Because
but think of it this way. Right now, it's available for Tulsi people or something, or progressives, to go and use for their communication platform. Yeah, you're not going to have all these Trump people jumping in saying you're a bunch of commies, right? And that's entertaining. But if you want to get business done and communicate with fellow progressives, you can go on Parler. Facebook that has an alternative Vero. YouTube has Rofkin and some others, and they're worried about it because, like right now, they were talking about on Parler that people are, as all of a sudden, as in the past like 2 days, people are jumping on rating Parler really low, and they're putting these bogus reviews trying to knock it down.
Oh, because people get paid to do that.
And it comes off Google Play and all that, Google Play services and everything, if it goes below a certain point. And you can see all these really obviously phony reviews going on. So they are worried, which is a good sign. Yeah.